I must add a chalk. Wall Street Journal. Sources. Genesis Global laid off 30% of its staff after a 20% cut in 2022, leaving the crypto lender with 145 workers and is considering filing for bankruptcy. Related, Katie Clark, The Information. Memo. Genesis parent company DCG shut down its wealth management subsidiary HQ Digital on January 2nd. Filing, HQ had over $3.5 billion under management as of December 2022. Crypto Malarkey, it follows us. It will follow us for a long time to come, but I don't really feel like talking about it right now. Eric Slivka, Mac Rumors, quo, due to development issues, Apple is more likely, quote unquote, to debut its mixed reality headset in the spring or at WWDC than in January as previously predicted. Apple's product development timelines are a black box, infamously, but the idea that they were going to put a headset into the market this month, I can't see that holding water. It just doesn't make any sense. The amount of time that they need to tell the story around their brand new product entering a not nascent but still very early category, you do that at a developer conference. If for no other reason, then those are the people who are going to make this product a success. Whatever first party experiences Apple's headset is going to deliver, they're going to pale in comparison to what the third party developer ecosystem will be able to accomplish. So, I mean, maybe you host an event before the developer conference and you tell a big story and you take, 90 minutes to tell a story, and then what do? You seed those devices without an opportunity to communicate directly to developers. Like, there are just too many ways in which it's that much bigger of a lift to do it at any other time but WWDC. So I can't imagine that anybody genuinely believed it was going to show up in January. Quite frankly, the fact that they're going to put a product into market, well, not the fact, the forecast from Ming-Chi Kuo that they're going to put a product into market within 6 months, even if market is only defined as the developer community, is wild to me. But we shall see. Wall Street Journal. Sources. OpenAI is in talks to raise over $300 million from Thrive and Founders Fund in a tender offer, valuing the company at around $29 billion, up from $14 billion in the 2021 tender offer. There's certainly a lot of energy revolving around OpenAI and the products that it's revealed in the last year. Is the business worth $30 billion? Who's to say? The thing that will be interesting to see over the next quarter, the next half year, the next year, is, are OpenAI's products materially more capable than similar machine learning generated pieces of software, machine learning fueled pieces of software that are built by other organizations or that are built in the open with open source tools? That is where I think, at least, the rubber meets the road on the idea that this business is worth as much as Thrive and Founders Fund seem to either think it is or want others to think that it is. There's a lot that could be said, but considering that this story is just going to keep popping up, we'll save it, talk about it later. Ana Paula Pereira, Cointelegraph. Three Arrows Capital liquidators subpoena founders Zhu Su and Kyle Davies, who have resisted cooperation via Twitter, seeking documents on the fund's collapse. More crypto malarkey? Not entirely clear from the way this headline is written whether the founders have been resisting participation with the liquidators and communicating that resistance on Twitter, or whether the liquidators subpoenaed them on Twitter. But in either of those circumstances, I don't know, if you've been listening to me rant here in my rest breaks long enough, the fact that any of this communication is happening on Twitter is an interesting thing, and to me the more worthwhile story. But the notion that another nouveau financial firm has fallen apart doesn't strike me as worth a whole lot more discussion. Mitchell Clark, The Verge. Qualcomm unveils Snapdragon satellite, which lets phones with a Gen 2 SoC and an X70 modem text off the grid via Iridium's satellite network, coming in the second half of 2023. This, on the other hand, is worth talking about. The idea that mobile phones, smartphones, pocket supercomputers, whatever we're supposed to call them, have arrived at a place where it's feasible for them to communicate directly with networks of orbiting satellites is remarkable. And to me, the most interesting part is now you get to this place where it's not just your carrier. And obviously, for the immediate term, your carrier is going to be responsible for 98% of network traffic that comes off of your device and arrives on your device. But the fact that it's no longer going to be 100%, and that in some scenarios there's an entirely different network provider in the mix is, I don't think you can effectively understate how much potential is there. If for no other reason than one of the networks of orbiting satellites is owned and operated by a business that Elon Musk controls. And so if you're remotely paying attention, the same person who just bought the internet's chat room also operates a hardware network, and the devices that are in the hands of average human beings, again, average with the appropriate asterisks, not everyone on the planet has a smartphone, but there are a lot of them. I see a world where those two businesses are going to create advantages for one another that I don't see any other competitors, either in the chat room for the internet business or in the we put satellites into orbit around the planet business. So again, it's super early. There's no particular shape to this thought that I have. It's remarkable, and it's worth underlining that we're getting to a place where all of the necessary pieces will be on the board for individuals to communicate with anybody else on the planet, possibly without the help of traditional cellular network operators. I just think that's a big deal. CNBC, Samsung estimates that its Q4 operating profit fell by 69% year over year to around $3.37 billion, an 8-year low, citing a greater than expected decline in memory chip demand. That's not good for Samsung. It's not good for many other players in the industry, obviously. The thing that this reminds me of is, and again, an ongoing thread for some time now, the average user of the device which Samsung memory chips are used in the assembly of, I just don't think that user is clamoring for more capability the way they were 2, 4, 8 years ago. You've got the ability to recapture and play back 4K high-speed video footage, and to store it all, and to chop it up and transmit it effectively. There aren't a whole lot other more demanding applications of the components that go into a traditional laptop, a traditional smartphone, a tablet. And so the need to buy new equipment because the stuff that one has is no longer up to snuff, I just don't think that need is there the way it was, quite recently. And I think that's what Samsung is unfortunately experiencing. Obviously, I could be totally wrong. Could be a dozen other things, but that's the place in my head where this puzzle piece fits into a wider picture. Reuters. Crypto exchange Huobi plans to lay off 20% of its around 1,100 person staff, citing the quote-unquote bear market. CoinGecko, Huobi had the 8th largest exchange volume in November 2022. Again, the crypto malarkey continues. Uh, I'll restate just for today. I firmly believe that there are legitimate and meaningful applications of what Bitcoin, what Satoshi Nakamoto has given to the world. I just don't know that exchanges for trying to make a profit off of moving amongst all of the forms of digital currency that have cropped up in the 10 years since the Bitcoin white paper. I think that number is right. Maybe it's not. What's up, birds? Until there are typical pedestrian applications of cryptocurrency that the average human being can easily take advantage of, I don't see a whole lot of room to run for any of these crypto exchanges, which I think is why you're seeing many of them fall apart, to say nothing of the exchanges that are run by known bad actors, FTX, yada, yada, yada. I'm just talking about an exchange that is run by well-meaning individuals. I don't believe that there's a very large market for those things, in no small part because the majority of what one can do, again, in most parts of the world, with 8 out of 10 of the cryptocurrencies that exist, is simply move to different coins or purchase some thing that only sort of has value within the crypto community. NFTs are a fantastic sort of canary in this coal mine. I have all the hope in the world that the artists who have sold NFT representations of their work will be continuing to be able to do so into the future, and that some subset of those tokens hold value and appreciate into the future. But I think if we could look at the analog world and compare how photography was compensated by the free market, or how painting or any other form of, again, predominantly visual medium art has been valued by the market over the last 100 years, I mean, I think you got to be talking about at most 5% of the creators who were trying to make the creation of that art their living were able to do so. That's a complete conjecture, a total shot in the dark, but the spirit is there. Selling an NFT of a piece of art that you created, either with a camera or with Cinema 4D or whatever, I hope that that works for you. I'm just not convinced that there is that much room for people who do that. And again, to like zoom back out, that is not a sufficient application of cryptocurrency such that multiple exchanges can exist and thrive. Whereas if there were a predominant cryptocurrency for Canada, and another one in Mexico, and another one in the United States. And those things were all used in those respective jurisdictions to buy transit passes, go to concerts, eat meals, pay for lodging, all the sort of shit that people do with money. If that were the case, then you could imagine an exchange could exist that would facilitate migrating between those coins. That's a big dream, and I just don't think we're anywhere near there yet. But who knows? Jeffrey A. Fowler, Washington Post. Twitter verified a Washington Post columnist's fake U.S. Senator Ed Markey account after Elon Musk said, quote, all verified accounts will be manually authenticated, unquote. Good job, New York Post, doing your fourth estate duty of poking the machine to see whether or not it works properly. Great. I don't think there's much new under the sun that's worth talking about here. Verification at Twitter today, from my point of view, is about lowering that bar as far as you can go to let the majority of well-meaning actors operate on the platform, and therefore to suppress bad actors who could operate at scale in a world before verification was as easy to obtain as paying, 2 lattes a month to participate in the internet's chat room, which, I get it, $8 a month is real money to a great many people in the world. So the Washington Post confirming, apparently, that the manual authentication process for verified accounts is not operating flawlessly. There's some utility there, I suppose, but it's a process, right? I mean, it was only in the last week that I've noticed the rollout of verification through account affiliation. Of course, I've only seen it on the accounts of David Sachs and Jason Calacanis, who, work closely with Elon and are actively involved in his process of taking Twitter in a new direction. But it is another example of a way to verify users in the system. All of which is to say, he's not done evolving the means for verifying the majority of users who want to participate in the system in good faith. So, yeah, we're going to find holes. I don't think it means a whole lot other than the whole system is a work in progress. Stephen Totolo, Axios. Microsoft files a revised rebuttal to the FTC's lawsuit to block its Activision Blizzard deal, removing its claim that the FTC's structure is unconstitutional. I've been offline in a way, not really, but I had not heard that Microsoft asserted that the structure of the Federal Trade Commission was unconstitutional and that it did so in the context of trying to tell the FTC that it was wrong to hold up the company's acquisition of a massive games development and publishing business. That's an interesting take. I suppose when the president of the company used to be the company's number one attorney, that maybe this is where you end up, is rather than discussing the nature of the deal on its merits, which, to the extent that you believe it or agree with it, Phil Spencer's press tour back beginning of December, I don't know, I heard him in conversation with Nilay Patel on Decoder. He does a perfectly serviceable job of making the company's case, which is we will not remain competitive unless we can acquire this business. And if I remember, the bulk of the justification behind that claim was a significant percentage of the money being made in gaming is in casual games that people play on mobile devices. And that's a place where Activision Blizzard owns some incredibly valuable IP, and Microsoft does not. Of course, there is the red flag that drew the attention of a lot of the traditional gaming community, which is one of the most popular AAA titles in all of gaming, Call of Duty, is, I forget if it's produced or just distributed by Activision Blizzard, but if Microsoft owned that, how does that change the nature of people that buy PlayStations being able to play that game? Yada, yada, yada. It'll be interesting to see how this deal progresses. It strikes me as, I don't think I'm being overwrought here, kind of existential to Microsoft. It's not to say that the company will go out of business if it can't succeed here, but it's also abundantly clear that they are attacking gaming as a service in a way that none of their competitors are capable of doing, in part because they own and operate their own, tier one cloud infrastructure products. So being able to have a consumer product that consumes Azure and all of the associated engineering work that goes into Azure, being able to bill n number of people on the planet, $5, $10, $15, $30 a month to game, is a tremendously valuable thing for the company. So of course they're going to go after this deal. I kind of want to see them win because I'd like to live in a world where you can play video games without having to make significant hardware investments. And I think that's a place that Microsoft knows there's opportunity to be found, right? That the number of people who are either going to own and upkeep a dedicated Windows PC to play games, or the number of people who are going to purchase and then upgrade an Xbox console, something tells me those markets are largely tapped out. Whereas people who will gladly, again, throw a little bit of money every month, maybe you turn it off for 3 months, maybe you turn it back on, in order to game using nothing more than the television they bought within the last 2 years, or maybe a $100 set-top box that just gets plugged into an HDMI input and disappears, and you just have a controller in your hands. That's a beautiful version of the future. It's a version of the future I would love to live in. So here's hoping that they don't piss off the FTC by insinuating that they don't have constitutional authority to do what they do. Brody Ford, Bloomberg. Salesforce's layoffs hit Tableau, acquired for $15.7 billion in 2019, harder than other divisions after CEO Mark Nelson was ousted in late December 2022. I'm not familiar with the organizational structure that Salesforce uses. It sounds like Tableau has been operating as its own division. The salient thing, I suppose, is if what you build is, not existential to Salesforce's business, and you sell your business to Salesforce, don't be surprised if after some honeymoon phase has run its course, that your division is molded against your will into the size and scope that Benioff et al. Think is appropriate. But I don't follow them closely, so I don't feel like it's useful for me to say much more than that. Matt Burgess, Wired. WhatsApp launches Proxy support globally, letting users with blocked or disrupted connections use the app via servers set up by volunteers and organizations. This is quite interesting. I would presume that WhatsApp has, alongside this announcement, made it plain to anyone who's interested that the security promises baked into its product are in no way jeopardized by fundamentally changing its architecture in this way. Is there utility in enabling users who have less reliable network connections to use a product like WhatsApp in a pleasing way, right? In a way that causes them to continue to become users or continue to be? Absolutely. Like, if this works as advertised, great. It also, to me, looks somewhat similar to a version of a communications network which does not rely on a single pillar of centralized architecture. That's a good thing. That's the world we need to arrive at. And if WhatsApp is making innovation in that area, I really hope that they are interested in sharing some of what they've learned in the course of making these improvements to the product, because I am hopeful, possibly naively so, that WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, Twitter, that the handful of tier one messaging platforms see the writing on the wall, which is some protocol is going to put us all out of business unless we are willing to adopt and support said protocol and compete on superior user experience. I'm not really sure what else, right? But the messaging experience, right? The DMing experience that we all live with today, again, regardless of which of those products you use, I just in my bones believe where that winds up is an experience that looks a lot like email, which is to say, I can have Gmail provide me with email services, and you can have Microsoft provide you with email services, and they can roll their own email server, though in 2022, not the best use of one's time, and that all of us can communicate effortlessly simply by knowing the appropriate addresses. That's the world that messaging has to get to. And so I'm optimistic that part of the improvements that WhatsApp has made in order to engineer this proxy support are setting it up to be a good citizen in that future. Mitchell Clark, The Verge. Snap plans to shut down its camera app for Mac and PC on January 25th, 2023. Launched in October of 2018, the app let users apply face filters while on video calls. Snap, Snapchat is a messaging tool with, a particular bent. And I mean, maybe it maintains a healthy user base, and I'm just not aware of it because I'm old. But just the notion that they continue to have a successful messaging product and that's what they are by and large known for, it just doesn't strike me that that's that it's very long for this world. All of the investment that they put into augmented reality, manipulating what camera sensors on modern devices capture, that I imagine is going to serve them in good stead for quite some time. I would even place the bet that they could do exceptionally well in a world where people wear headsets with pass-through video footage as a way to see with augmentation layered on top. So maybe they're going to be exceptionally well positioned, whether it's this year or next year or the year after, that we see some meaningful, within reach of consumers, wearable device where augmenting a video feed is a meaningful part of the experience. But their core or first tradition, the Snapchat messaging product that made the company what it is today, I'll admit it's just a blind spot for me. I have no idea how successful that tool continues to be versus how much of what it offers has been swallowed by, say, Instagram or anything else. So, I don't know, they just continue to be this really interesting outlier in the realm of consumer social media companies. Interesting to continue to watch them. Antonio G. Di Benedetto, The Verge. Lenovo unveils the YogaBook 9i, a laptop with two 13.3-inch OLED displays available in June 2023 for $2,100 and up, with a 13th gen Intel Core i7 U15 chip and 16 gigabytes of RAM. Related, Emma Roth, The Verge. Lenovo announces the 4th gen ThinkBook 16P, adding modular accessories like a 4K wireless webcam, a webcam Lite, and LTE, available in May for $1,349. I mean, I guess it's worth applauding to some degree that there are still businesses that want to materially innovate on the laptop form factor. That said, I just don't know. I don't know what Siri has to say about this. I don't know who they hope to get that they don't already have. I'm sure some 10,000 people spread across the planet will buy a laptop with two 13-inch displays. But if I'm responsible for the P&L that produces that product, don't I look at it 2 years from now and say, all of the salary that we paid to all of the people responsible for bringing this product to market versus the number that are actually in the wild and being used, does that pencil out? Does that make sense? I just find it hard to believe that it will. By comparison, though, shipping a laptop where you can give me a webcam that is physically detached from the device, and so I can place it wherever it is advantageous to get the angle that I want on myself when I'm going to be on camera, and to light me more effectively than natural light will allow, and to enable me to connect that laptop to the internet without having to, I don't know, connect to your telephone. There are some areas where innovation makes sense. The issue is none of those modular accessories are sort of intrinsic to that product. You can go get a better webcam. Maybe it's not wireless and you've got to have a piece of USB cable, but you can buy a separate camera and put it on a tripod. You can buy a light and hang it. It's still sort of a Frankenstein, but crafting the toolkit necessary to provide a top tier on camera experience. You don't need to buy a special kind of laptop in order to do that. And so, I mean, again, innovation's great. Keep pushing the form. I just don't see either of these as improvements on the fundamental form that is laptop. I don't really know what those improvements might be. Maybe a laptop that you can throw from a moving car and have it land on the ground and it keeps working. Probably not. Maybe a laptop where the battery lasts for days instead of hours. Maybe. Maybe laptops that you just have to call your network provider and suffer the extra $15 a month tax that they're going to charge you in order for them to have persistent connections to the internet. Utterly possible. Like, but aside from those things, I just don't. I don't think that it's about laptops with more than one display or ones with webcams that only work with that one special kind of laptop that you bought. But I could be wrong.